Greetings to you, everyone. My name is Chimuni Edwin. I'm a group 6 member, and I'll be taking you through number 2. Number 2 wanted us to come up with a bank account management system that would implement all the following, as you can see in our number 2. The bank management system, let's create a Java class called bank account, the private attributes like account number and then the balance. Then the program also requires that we implement some of these methods, the deposit, withdraw, and then check balance, and also ensure that the withdrawals don't exceed the balance, and also demonstrate some sample transaction. So I'll jump to our code in VS, and this is our code right here. And in our code, of course, in our code, we started by importing some libraries. The first one, which is java.util, the one we usually use for user input. Then these last 3 libraries will be helping us in our graphical user interface, as we shall see later. But for now, let us just first go through the coding part, one of the things of the transaction and everything. Then after we can look at the user interface. So of course we created our class here called back account, and we gave it 3 variables, but we gave them a private keyword, meaning they can only be accessed within this class. But if you want to access them outside the class, then we need to create functions and methods for them and call those methods to be able to get values of these variables. Of course, we have the double. We created a double for balance. Then, of course, we created an integer for called correct pin. Of course, our program implements the user to be able to insert in the pin, and then we access the user interface. And then we also have the string for account number. Then we created a constructor whereby this constructor will just be initializing what will be like initializing the balance, or initializing will be like our initial. Okay, it will be called when we instantiate the class in the main function. So our constructor, of course, the constructor should have the same name as the class name. Though for it doesn't have a return type. So for our constructor, was taking into parameters, we're setting in a string which is the account number, and then our initial balance, and then we use this keyword to mean that this account number, this account number variable is actually it's for this particular class, not any other thing. Then of course we had a number of methods. Like we had a method for set the pin, whereby our pin was 1, 2, 3, 4, and that method was returning the correct pin, which was 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we had the deposit method, we had the withdraw method, and then we had some other method here for checking balance, and then also the one for getting account number. Getting account number and then setting pin. Of course, if you come back at our variables, you can see that balance everything was private, meaning it could only be accessed within that particular class. But in case you want to access it outside the class, then we need to create methods for them. That's why we have to create these methods of what? This method of checking balance, and then getting account number, and also setting the what? And also setting the pin here. Just to be able to get the values of these methods and be able to use them somewhere else in case we need them. So of course, starting with the deposit method, of course, when you're depositing, here we are saying if the amount you should deposit only if and only if the amount is above what? Above 0. You can't deposit 0 shillings, $0, depending on the currency you're dealing with. Then how do you update? You're saying to update it, you should get the initial balance and to get the new balance, you should get the initial balance and add on the amount someone is depositing, and then some message will be shown that you have deposited this amount of money, and then it will also update the balance or the current balance of the customer. So here I'm using something called G option pen that show message dialog, and then I'm having something within the parentheses. Now this G option pen, it's one of the classes that this Java X.swing unlocks, and specifically this G option the option plane just helps us to kind of pop out some sort of dialog box in case something happens. For example, like for this case, if the user in if the user deposit some amount of money, some sort of dialog box will come up and pop out and show will be showing this details, will be showing that cash deposit of the amount the person has deposited was successful, and then to also be able to show us the current what? The current balance. Then here we are seeing something like the option dot information message. This just kind of specify that what the message this thing is popping out is what? Is information. And we should also be able to see some other things like now this one of what? Of error message. And we see the difference when they come to the program when you run it, what actually these two actually mean when you use them. So for deposit, that was the deposit method was actually just doing it. So it was returning nothing from now, but then it was taking in a parameter of what? Of amount, the amount the user inputs. Then for withdraw is having quite a lot of things because we have to check a lot of things as in they have this a lot of validations. So for withdraw still was taking in the parameter was amount, and for withdraw, of course, when we withdraw normally in the normal cases, there have to be some sort of withdraw charges. So yeah, we took the tax to be 1.5 out of 1.5% of what? Of the amount someone deposits. Someone wants to withdraw. Then of course, to get now like the total money someone will be or the total money which will be deducted from someone's account, we need to get the amount they want to withdraw plus the tax of that what? Tax of that amount, and then withdraw it. Now here we had some sort of validation, but if someone wants to withdraw, if someone tries to withdraw an amount which is less than what? Which is less than zero, which is less or equal to zero, then you should return a what? Return some sort of error message that what you're trying to withdraw does not exist. And then you should and then give them the what? Tell them the account balance. So you're saying that if someone request enters to enter like a try to to withdraw a value which is less than zero, less or equal to zero, then you should tell them that enter valid what? Valid amount. And then after that, we should tell them what the account balance is so that they know. Someone may not be certain of how much money they have on their account. So a message will come and pop out and tell them that actually you have this amount of money. And then this is where we are saying withdraw failed. Now this most of these things you see them in the interface when you run the program. Right now, yeah, they may not make sense when I explain them. Then that was the first is the first one, the first if. Then the other one is that if someone tries to withdraw an amount which is greater than their what? Which is greater than their account balance, we should still show them another message that they have insufficient funds on account. Then still show them the account balance. And then of course the withdraw will have to pay. And then finally, if everything is successful, whereby someone's getting a valid amount and then someone is trying to withdraw what they already have, then we should be able now to update the what? Update the balance. Whereby to get the new balance, you get the old balance subtract of the what? The withdraw fee, whereby the withdraw fee was the summation of the amount someone wants to withdraw plus the what? Plus the tax. Then of course, similarly to the previous one, they will show us some sort of what? Some sort of dialog box. So now then after that, we created the function which was a data type double and what was called get balance. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, that when you created these variables, the variable for price, right, for balance, correct pin, and then account number, we gave them the keyword what? The keyword private, which means that to be able to get the values of to be able to get the values of these things outside the what? Outside this particular class, because private means that the values of these particular variables will be used within the particular what? Within that same class, which is back account. So to be able to use them outside the back account class, we need to create a function for them, whereby for this case the function was to get a balance, we created a function which was get what? Get balance. And then for the account number, we still use the same thing, put another variable, another method to be able to get that account number when we call it in the main function. Then the same applies for the pin. We created a method, as I mentioned earlier, which was what? Which was to set a pin. And for that case, our pin was 1, 2, 3, 4. So to be able to access this pin outside this particular class, we have to create a method for it which was set pin. That was basically our what? That was basically the account class, which was actually answering the what? Answering the question of implementing the method, depositing, withdraw, and all that stuff. But now, just for just to make our system to look nice and to kind of be realistic, we have to implement now some GUI or some graphical user interface. And to implement that, we had to create a class we named GUI, which was going to try to add some sort of coloring and then some graphical user interface, because normally the user won't have to come to Visual Studio and then they come to the terminal and then run the program and then do the thing in the terminal. They need to have some sort of graphical. For them, most of the time users are not interested in the what? In the back end of the code. For them, they're interested in what they see and how they use the program. So this issue of running the thing in the terminal, it won't work for them. But seeing something and they just feed in values and then see things working, I think that would be nice for them. They'll be happy. So to be able to implement our GUI, we created a class which we call GUI or GUI. And here we are saying it extends the what? It extends the GeoFrame. Remember this GeoFrame, we said that this library here, which was javax.swing, was the kind of a library which was a library that was going to help us to access some of these classes. Whereby the first class is this class which is called what? Which is called GeoFrame. Now this GeoFrame just kind of gives us the, how should I call it? It gives us like the frame of our program, as in how our program will kind of what? How our program will kind of look like as in how our GUI would kind of look like when we run the code. Then we are saying that GUI, all these classes just like a what? We're saying it extends your frame, which kind of means that this GUI will be a subclass of what? A subclass of your frame. Of course, the way we created our program is it's one form you can create it, but it's actually, I can say, better form of actually creating the what of creating the frame yourself, but without you necessarily having to create a subclass and just have all the things inside the what? The JFrame. Then we are saying implement action listener. And now we are saying that this JFrame, the same class also will be containing some event listeners. Now, and for the event listeners, we shall be now using this other what? This other class here, this last one, which is the java.aw.event, which basically just helps us to what? To respond to some sort of what? Some sort of actions. For example, if I'm having buttons in my program and someone clicks the button, then we should be able to see something happen. So those things are actually managed by what? Some of the classes we shall be using actually they are unlocked by this particular class, this particular library here. Then this library here, this middle one here, the java.awt. Now this one is basically for the CSS of the program. For those who know some web designing, it just helps us to kind of deal with things like coloring, things of colors, styling, things of layout and all that stuff. This basically just unlocks some of those unlocks actually all those methods we shall be using under in our GUI. So here we created four variables. We kind of created what? Some variables here, and we created something. We created a private back account, and we gave it a name of what? Back account. And then private JX field, and we give it amount. Now this J text field will be like our what? Our input box when we come to our GUI. Then this J label just helps us to be able to add what kind of text in our program, and then J button is of course is for buttons. And we shall do this for this program shall basically having four buttons: the one for depositing, withdrawing, checking balance, and then exiting the graphical user interface. Then for the label, we shall have the balance label, and then for the amount field will just be like our what? Our input box in our program. Then for this particular class, of course, we have to create a constructor for it. And of course, most of the time the constructor is called when the program is what? When the class is instantiated in the main function or wherever you might what? You might call it. So in our constructor, of course, we created an object is named what? An object. Of course, we previously named our object of our bank account. We call it account, and we are giving it these parameters. That of course, if we come back to our constructor here, the bank account, we say that our constructor is taking into parameters, account number, and then initial balance. So the same thing should happen when we call it in this particular class. It should be taking in the account number and then the current balance. Then now here the magic starts. So here, of course, you want to come up with something which kind of looks nice when the user tries to run the program. So here we are setting the title of our the title of our frame. We are giving it a name of what? Of Global Bank Transaction Management System. Yeah, the Global Bank is just the name of the bank we try to modify the system for. And then we are saying set default. This is a function. This is a method. Yeah? And they're saying this method just tells us that when someone tries to click on what? On So I meant that if that this line of code simply means that when there is a click, for example, I'll take the example, for example, of this interface. Say if someone presses like this close button here, the program should stop entirely. Should not continue running in the what? In the background. So that's what this one kind of this line of code means. Then set size here, we are trying to set the dimensions of our worker interface. We give it a 450 by 450, which is the U-defined what? The U-defined height of that interface will come up with. Then we are saying set location relative to null. Here, what we are trying to mean is that whenever the program is run, this interface should be positioned at least in the what? In the center of our screen, not in any other position. Then then we set the layout, and we set the layout, we call the layout function, and we created an object. We created an object of the what? An object called border what? Border layout. This border layout, the border layout in Java can be split into, it can be split into five. Something can be, okay, it's kind of how you can be able to break our interface into, as in break our interface. The big interface can be broken into like five components, can be broken into the north. We have the east, west, north, south, and then the what? And then the center. Whereby most of the times the north is used for example, like the titles. If you have like some sort of titles you want to add to your program, then the south can be maybe, okay, maybe I can use an example of web design. So you can use the border layout of north when you want, for example, add something like the navigation bar. Then for the south, you can use it for the footer, and then for the center, you can use it maybe for the what? For your main body of the website, provided that this was a website. So the same thing can apply. Then for the east and west, well, for now I don't know a good use of them, but they're also available. Then here we kind of set the what? We use the set background function, set background method to just give us the background of the what? The background of the interface. Maybe then of course there are quite a lot of other things we have to add there. For example, you have like now this JLabel. This JLabel just helps us add text to our program. Then of course we give the label name of what? The label, the name of title what? The name of title label, and we create an object for it. And inside the object we gave it some values. Welcome to Global Banking Services. And of course we have the some statement here which is swing constants dot center, which just simply means that this text here should be positioned to the center of the center of that particular, the center of our div frame of the entire program. So maybe let me say hello, let me just run the program, and then I can come back this side and show you what most of the things do. So, running, I said Java. You ever see then the number of how many function I called it main, the Java, then you can press enter. So there we're just trying to compile the code. Then after we should run the class, the class is main, and then we run. So of course our program, the first thing you do before you access the GUI is to enter the pin. And of course the pin we made it simple as 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you can press enter. The moment you press enter, they give you the interface now. Whereby in our interface, you are seeing welcome to Global Bank Services, and then they're telling you to enter amount. Now, when you enter a particular amount, for example, like maybe 40,000, now it depends on what you want to do. For example, if I want to deposit the 40,000, I'll come and press the deposit button, and it will show me a message, which is the other dialog box I was talking about earlier, that this is a cash deposit. And now I see this cash symbol here. This cash symbol now is what now, what I, what I was trying to explain earlier, somewhere here up, that if someone comes and if we come back to our methods here in the bank class, I see this thing of J option plain dot information message. So this thing, to show that it's actual information, the symbol will be then first deposit maybe like 2K, then I deposit it. So if it's information, the symbol will be something like a what? Like a circle here, and then something like an eye inside the circle. Can press enter. Then if, for example, I try to deposit nothing and I press enter, of course, it show me some message that what? Please enter a valid number. But then if I press OK, then it show me another error message, which is now what? An X, and X now comes in when I use the what? When I use now dot what? Dot error message. Hmm? Hmm. I'll have taken another shot. Of course, I deposit now you can see that our balance is 42 what? 42,000. So if maybe I try to withdraw, maybe I withdraw like 30,000. And I come and I press the withdraw button. So of course it will also show us some dialog box which is telling us the amount you have withdrawn, and also includes the tax of what? The tax, which whereby tax was 1.5% of the amount to withdraw. So the tax here is 450. And of course it will show you the remaining balance of the remaining balance of your system. Then if, for example, let us do something crazy. Maybe let me try to withdraw an amount which is above what we have there. Maybe let me try to withdraw 160, say 16,000 shillings, and you see what will happen. So then let me do this and you see. So of course it will show you sufficient what? Sufficient funds, then it tells you the account balance you have on your account, which is 11,550, which is the account balance. So of course you'll have to withdraw something you have already. And for instance, maybe try to withdraw the remaining balance, and you see what happens. So the remaining balance is 11,550. So if you try to withdraw this, of course, you see, tell us insufficient funds, because you remember, eh, for every transaction, for every withdrawal you make, you have to give us, you have to kind of, there has to be some sort of withdrawal charge for that particular transaction are trying to make a withdrawal. So because it will still continue showing the same thing. So when we press check balance, the other box will come pop up and tell us the our account balance, which is still the same as this. Then if we press exit, our goal will be what? Our goal will be exited. But then first, of course, you see some message which tells that thank you for what? Thank you for using our bank. Now just to explain maybe some sort of the GUI behind. Yeah, of course, maybe there's some keywords you have to just explain that whenever I encounter them, you know what I'm doing. So whenever you encounter the G panel or the Java panel or the J panel, eh, this J panel is just used to kind of it's just like maybe let me give it an example. It's just like a container where where our labels, because for the labels, all our text is represented by what? By the J label. So that whenever I use J label, I want to add some sort of text to our graphical user interface. So so you can say that here I created I created an object because this J panel is a class. It's just a class which is unlocked by the other what? By the other dx swing dot swing. This is just a class. So we put an object of that particular class. Well, because whenever I see the word new, we are creating an object. So you create an object which will give the name of what? The name of title panel. So in this title panel, we shall be having a label, and we shall be having a label, and of course, it's still for the label, the J label is still a class, and for this particular class, we created an object of it which we named title label, and in the title label, we created an object for it, and of course, if you look at this J label here, of course, the little smaller thing, and maybe I can explain still. But for example, if you come to our class here, of course, you can have a class called back account, and then you can create a constructor for it. A constructor for it, whereby a constructor is just a method that will have the same name as the class, and will be called whenever an object for that particular class is called. Whenever an object for that particular class is created. So this constructor will always be what? This constructor will always be called. So the same thing applies to our class here called GUI. That whenever we create an object for GUI in any place, this constructor should be what? This constructor should be called. And this constructor is still a method, but it's just a special method which is particular to a given class. So whenever we shall be calling this constructor, we shall be creating a class for this particular for this GUI class. We shall be calling this what? We first call this constructor, and everything this construct has to first be what? Has to first be called. So of course, here we created an object for the what? For the J panel, and for this object, of course, it will be having for right now, its constructor is having it has nothing, it is empty. Then this J panel, now here we can be able now to kind of now make some sort of what? Some sort of styling, yeah? And this is where now the other import AWT, which is abstract window toolkit, which is our CSS for this case comes into play. But for example, we are saying the title panel dot set background. We are giving it somewhat. We are giving it a color of 0000. Yeah, but here this 0000 is just representing our RGB, red, green, red, blue, and what? Red, blue, and green. And we're giving it 00, but this is the base color. What? This is the base color, black. Then we're setting the layout to be new, and then we're giving it nothing for now because our panel will just be having just only this statement here. Our title panel. And as I said earlier, that this swing constants to the center just simply means that we want to position this text of ours within the center of our label or the center of our container, which is called title label. Then here we are adding a foreground, whereby foreground is just should be like our font color of our it should be the font color of this statement here, which is welcome to Global Bank Services. So we use the font color method to be able to give font colors to our text in the labels. Then set font. Yeah, but for this set font here, we can be able to create we can be able to give different font families. Like here we used array, and you're still having something like font that bold here, but this can also be tiles. Then this last one is our font size. And then we're using the add function. Now this add function just helps us to add this particular label to its corresponding panel. Remember, these panels, they are like what? They are like containers. So we're like this label here should be added to what? Should be added to our our panel. And here we are specifying that the border layout, the layout should be what? Should be dot north. Remember when I was talking about these different layouts you can have, the layouts are five. You can have north, east, west, south, and then what? And then south. So we are saying that this, our title section, our title label should be placed in the north of our what? North of our geo frame, of our entire frame. Then after there, we have now, we created another label now, the other label which was representing what? Which was representing the balance. Maybe let me first run the program again. I talk about things while you're seeing them. Let's compile it. And then I run the class. As for the pin I want to look for, enter. Then oh, we're back here now. Let me first make the so if you come back here, so what I was trying to mean that this balance label here, place it here. So this balance label, this one here, balance label is actually this one here. So you can see that we have something like balance label is equal to new label, then you have this whereby here, balance label, we are creating an object of the J label, of J label. Remember, J label is a class. So you're trying to create an object for it, and we're giving it a name of what? Of balance label. And inside it, inside the parentheses of that particular thing, we are putting this text balance, UB shillings, as you see it here. And then you are calling the what? We're saying account dot, then you are calling the get balance function or method, which we defined earlier, which will be giving us the balance of the particular user. Then of course here we have in swing.center, whereby swing constant in center, which talks which just centers which just kind of centers our text and everything to be in the center, as you can see. As you can see here, that everything is placed in the center of our interface. Then, of course, you can set the fonts, as we saw earlier, the foreground, which is just the what? Which is just the font color. Then for the input, we have in the input section, yeah, the input section is just this input box here. Of course, we defined it here. We have to create a panel for it, because remember, whenever we create a panel, we are kind of creating what? We are creating some sort of container. So if you come back here to the welcome to Global Bank Services, this was our kind of our title panel. We are not containing this, but can contain more depending on what you want. Then here in the middle here, we have now our what? We having our another panel, which is like our main thing, where our things are gonna everything is gonna be. So in this one, we are having our input box, and then we see we also put place the other field for account what? For the account balance. So for the current account balance. Then, as you can see here, we have to create an object for it, and then we put another object for the what? Another object for that particular thing, for the input box. We have to create an object for it, which is labeled as what? Amount field, and we give it 24, which is just kind of the what? Of the size you want it to be. Then you're saying that amount field dot set preferred size, and we give it dimensions of 25 by 250 by 30, which are just the dimension of the width and height of this particular of our input box. So we are saying that from here up to here, the width is 250, and then the height is just 30. Then amount field dot set font, because we are set the font sizes. We give it the font family of Arial, then the font should be what? Should just be plain, whereby earlier we said that we can actually also use bold, italic. Then we are giving the font size. But if I kind of place like the values here, the font size of this values I'm placing is actually 18. Then this panel, because remember this central panel is the what? Is the object of is just actually is just like our it's just the container where all these fields are being placed. So we give it a background color of this is something close to white. I think it's green. Then now we have to add now everything. We have to add the amount field, which was the text box, and then we also wanted to add the what? The balance label here. You come back here. This level balance label also wanted to add it to the what? This central panel, which is the container we have. So we add it by just calling that object and then saying the add function or method, and then we put those particular what? We put those fields there in those parentheses. Then for the button, still for the button, we created another sort of section for it, or another container for it, which is named button panel. We put the object, and then inside it we created an object for what? For the grid layout. For the grid layout, it just helps us to be able to position our buttons. Remember, for our program, we have four buttons here. We have the deposit, withdraw, check, balance, and then exit. So here we are seeing some parameters inside. We are seeing the 4, 1, 10, 20. What this actually represents is that we shall be having 4 rows, and then we shall be having one column, and then the horizontal spacing should be 10, and then the vertical spacing between the buttons should be 20. So if you come back here, I try and say that the horizontal spacing between the buttons, whereby for this case we don't have any buttons in the horizontal. So this one actually be ignored. Well, this one may be ignored, but for the vertical spacing between the button between here and here is actually 20 pixels. Then, of course, we have to create the buttons themselves because each button is taken as an object. Because the fact that we are dealing with Java is a what? An object-oriented programming. So everything is actually all about creating objects. So don't get tired of hearing creating objects. Then here, of course, we created the deposit button. Then we gave it a value of that. So we use the Java, the get button, and the get button is just one of the classes which are unlocked by the other swing feature we saw earlier on our project. Then I go to all the buttons for these other different things. Then for the styling, we said each button different. For the posting, it was green. Then the withdrawing was red, check balance was blue, then exiting was kind of gray. Then we have this kind of code which is just basically for adding some sort of padding or spaces between our button from the interface. So this spacing here will just give us some sort of space from here on the left and on the right. So here you are seeing 5, whereby it's in the form of top, left, bottom, and then and then right. So on the top we are saying there should be like 10 there should be 5 pixels on the top, then 20 on the left, also 10 on the bottom, here down here from the frame, and then 20 on the right. Then finally, not finally, but as I continue, then we had to add add those things to our panel. Remember, our panel was called button was called button panel, and the button panel, remember, I will say that it's like some sort of container where our labels and things like buttons can be placed. And then here we're saying add button panel. Remember, button panel is the container where the buttons and then where the buttons for this case are placed. And now for this one, we are giving it a border layout of south, meaning it should actually be like in the footer position, or in the bottom position for this case. So when I come back here, we say that this welcome to global services is like our title panel. So it will be actually in the what? It will be up. Then we are saying that these buttons for them they are in south, meaning they're actually down of the what? They are like in the footer position. Then here, this control panel, we are seeing the the balance is our center what? Is like it should be like our center, our border layout of what? Of center. For east, for west and east, for this case, we don't have use for them, but they can also be used when you need them. Then finally, in this particular class, we created we have had some sort of listeners or action listeners. So we're like, for the deposit button, we're saying dot add action listen. This add the action listen is just some sort of function that helps us to actually look for those sort of actions that would happen when you use clicks maybe on the deposit button. So when you click on the button, when you click on any of these buttons, something should be able to happen. Now to be able to implement now our actions when the different buttons are clicked, we create another function for it, another method for it, which of course will be returning nothing, it is void. But the method name is action performed. An action performed takes in a parameter of action event, and then you're having whereby an E will be just a what? It will be an object which will be created for each instant of what? Of the button of the button when it is clicked. So you're saying if E dot get source, whereby get source is just like the action which will happen when the particular button is on what? Is clicked. So we're like if for example you have clicked a particular button, for example, you're saying if the action is done on the what? On the deposit button, then we should be able to do what? To update the balance, to update the amount, because there will be like depositing when you press that button of deposit. So saying when the double amount is equal to get amount, then we are saying account dot deposit, you are calling the deposit function, and then you are putting in the what? The amount which will be actually inserted in our input box here. Then after there, I would do what we call the update function, which will update the what? Now the balance. The same will apply to the other what? The other different buttons of withdrawing, of checking balance, and then of also exiting the program. And for exiting the program, it will of course show you the other what? It will be showing you different dialog boxes for the corresponding thing we shall be doing. See, for example, check balance. If you check balance, it will show you this dialog box of the account balances. With this, and then dispatches the account balance, that current account balance. Then for exiting, to just exit the what? To just exit the program by using this kind of code of system.exit, and then the interface will be locked. So for example, the moment I come here and I press exit, then the what? The interface will be locked and the program will stop running there and then. Then of course we had some helper method to just be helping us to be able to obtain our what? To be able to get the amount. And of course we use the try keyword. The try keyword just helps us to run risky code. Then for the catch, then tells us what should happen afterwards. The what? After that risky code has been run. So essentially here you should return the what? You should return the double and then return the amount with what? The amount with click. But in the case that doesn't happen, then this should be and then it should return 0, it should stop the program. Then of course this was the other update, the update method, which we defined here earlier. So that was basically for the classes. Now when we come to our main function, in our main function, because for the main function, we had to allow user input. For the user input was basically for the pin, because we wanted to implement the pin of the pin. And then we got an object for the what? For a new user, for example, the account balance of the account number of this and then balance of this. We go to the method, a variable here which will be a boolean, and we're saying if it's true. For now it is true, but when it becomes false here, we shall see what will happen. Then here is a do while loop. The do while loop was just to help us check the pin. But if, for example, we're saying that of course percent of the pin and the pin, of course we use the scanner class or the scanner object here to be able to allow user input. So I'm saying if the object dot set pin, remember set pin was some method we created earlier here in the bank account class, and it was having a particular value and it was returning what? It was returning the correct pin, which was 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're saying that if the pin there, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, if that pin is equal to pin, whereby now this pin here is the pin the user will be what? Will be inputting when they are trying to access the system. If they are equal, then we are saying we should create an object for the what? We should create an object for our GUI class and make it visible now and in simple terms and display it on our screen. But if the pin is wrong and doesn't match, then you should keep on saying what? Keep saying correct pin. And they're saying while what? While running is equal to true. As long as running is equal to true, you should be able to implement that. But at the moment running becomes false, then the program should do what? The program should stop. So that was basically how our program runs. Maybe I can come back, I can run it again just to emphasize some few things. Run it again here, you're compiling it first, and then running the class name. I remember our pin was 1, 2, 3, 4, enter. Then, of course, initially, for the particular user, the initial balance is 0, 0. So maybe I can deposit like maybe 12,000. So I can maybe say deposit. Then, of course, the deposit, yes, the money will be deposited. Our balance will be updated, as you can see. Then you can also deposit maybe 3,000. Then you say withdraw. So you can withdraw, sorry. And of course, on every money we withdraw, you have to remove some sort of tax. Then the balance will be updated. You have withdrawn some money. Then you can also check balance whereby this actually is the same as what is here. There's no big deal about that. Then you can also exhibit what the problem. But still on withdraw, if you try, of course, to withdraw, to deposit nothing or withdraw nothing, they'll show you some message that invalid amount, and then they'll show you the account balance there and then. Then, for what if someone tries to deposit maybe an amount which is larger than what they have in their account, maybe like 30K, they have like 8,000. Of course, they'll show insufficient what? Sufficient percentage of the account balance there and then. So that was basically our number 2. Thank you for listening.